everybody. This is Crypto Kenny back with Web3 Weekly on this beautiful Thursday. Well, it's a pretty rainy Thursday here on the East Coast, but great day in crypto today. We've got lots of events. In the last couple of days, we've had crazy news from the CPI data, some government stats that have been released and stuff, and a bunch of stuff going on. So if you guys are not subscribed to the channel, please like and subscribe. We drop a video a week every Thursday. We do videos on market updates. We do interviews with projects that Alpha Mutants are collaborating with. We do deep dives into use of tools on the market, analytics, and things like that. So last week we did we had Nate on here, and he did a dive into the utility tools that are available on the Alpha Mutants Discord. So if you guys haven't watched that, watch it. It was jam-packed. For as long as I've been in crypto, there was still a half dozen things out of that conversation that we had that I added to my repertoire there, which has been really helpful. My better Discord looks so much better this week than it did last week. So definitely check that stuff out, guys. So if you haven't watched that video, it's actually going to be in the corner right over here, and you can click on that link and check out that video. Check out our other videos, like and subscribe. We'd appreciate it. If you want to get more of a deep dive into some of the things we talk about on the episodes, link down below in the description section will be the Alpha Mutants social medias, will be the Discord link that you can come into the Discord and check everything out. Things are kind of heating up in there as we're getting close to launch date. A lot of new faces and a lot of material going on down there. So please check that stuff out. So today we are going to be talking about a few things. So let me preface this by saying that we officially have a recession in the United States now. We had 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP. And so that is traditionally how recessions are gauged. So that means that we have been in a recession for at least the last quarter and a half. So something between, we could have been potentially between 4 to 8 months of recession already. So that means we're in a period where historically we should be getting close to the bottom of this. The stock market should be within a 5 to 10% of the bottom. And that means that we should be getting close to the bottom here in the crypto markets. Also, historically, not financial advice. These things change. Nobody knows the markets. But if we're going from historical data over the last, 100 years, that's what we would see. So in light of that, today we want to talk a little bit about deploying capital, within the next couple months, trying to hit the bottom of this market. And we want to specifically talk about deploying capital in NFT collections, right? So today we're going to have a little discussion about what collections personally the Alpha Mutants team here believe are good places to park a little bit of your portfolio in for a long-term hold. So we're going to discuss some of those today. So today we have Link on here, our residential Discord guru. So he's going to be on here with us. We've got Nate down here, and this is a big thing for Nate because Nate doesn't hold anything. So it'll be interesting to hear his conversation about what we're going to get here. And then we have one of the collections we're going to be talking about today is Clonex and Rect Capital. So we have a residential kind of fanboy and expert on that collection and ecosystem in the Discord here. So Dark Star, he's going to be on here with us. You see his beautiful Clonex being displayed right here on the front. So we'll get some insight into that collection with him. So thanks guys for taking the time to jump on here today. So let's get into it real quick. We'll try to get about an hour here on the episode and get as much information as we can. So first off, what I want to just preface this before we go into collections is, give me a 60-second breakdown of what each of you guys would define a blue chip or a safe, long-term NFT investment. What do you think the qualities are that you need to be looking into for those? So we'll start off with let's make it easy. Let's start off with we'll just go from start with you, Link. Let's hear what you would. 60 seconds. You got 60 seconds. Tell us what you 60 seconds to tell us what you would look for in a potential long-term NFT holding.
Well, what a blue chip is essentially. Well, people define a blue chip in like different ways. Like, I'm sure you would define it as something different to what someone else would define it as. Like for
Hmm.
me, it's when I first came into the space, it was mainly looking out for projects that had already been established. They already had great funding behind them. Um, More or less like, you can get super rich people coming into the space that already want to, they probably collect houses, real estate, like, cars, that all that sort of stuff. And they're coming in the crypto market and they're going, all right, what's the best cryptocurrency or what's the best NFT project? What am I collecting? And whether that's a CryptoPunk or Bored Ape or whatever, they're coming in and they're buying up pretty much all of these larger projects, which are out of reach for most people.
Hmm.
And everyone else who can't afford those are essentially flipping, 1 ETH and below projects to buy into those larger collections. So to me, it's more about what funding uh, a project would have behind it, what business model they've got, what kind of backers they've got, partners, all that sort of stuff. But then there's also the flip side, which is like historic value. So it could be like an art project.
Yep.
It could be like a CryptoPunk, or what was there was like a second NFT that
Me bits.
minted on Ethereum. I think it was called like Skulls. No, no, it was
Oh,
something
oh, oh!
Skulls.
You're talking about that, not the second collection. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's just crypto skulls. Yep.
So yeah, you could have collections with huge funding and a business model behind them, but you could also have ones with historic value, which no other NFT project can take away from. Essentially, sorry, that's over 60 seconds, but yeah, go ahead, Nate.
Well,
Yeah,
I'll take mine next since I'm
yeah.
next on the line here.
Oh
So
yeah, sure.
for me personally, I think I define these a little bit differently. It's probably why I have so few that I consider good long term investments. But I define it as projects that operate like real life companies, right? So a real life company does not care about hype cycles. A real life company does not care about 1 quarter or 2 quarters. A real life company, when they create business plans and models, they're normally 5 to 10 years, right? So they have a very long time frame. So when I see projects that have a roadmap that goes out 10 years, and they don't sweat a bad quarter or 2 bad quarters. They're very organized. They're very categorized in how they process things, and also a big thing for me is a team that obviously is doing things for their community. So they're actively working to give their community what they want. They're allowing community input. They're taking those type of things. So for me, it's really just analyzing projects like I would analyze, a company that's a new company that's coming on the market. So it's pretty traditional for me. Nate, let's hear your definition, sir.
No, I mean that's you hit it, nail on the head. If you look at it as a traditional company, essentially, right? Any and let's use a gaming company for example, because that's what the whole metaverse is, right? The most successful games are the ones that listen to their community and develop for the community, right? Because that's their user base that they're going to market to. If it doesn't matter if you have a vision on a game, but if you can't produce it, one that somebody wants to play, then like it doesn't matter. You're not going to make it. And you can pour as much funding as you want into a project. You can artificially inflate the floor to 20 ETH. That doesn't make a blue chip.
Yep.
So for me, I think it's twofold. It's overall volume long term, right? Not just volume on a 24-hour period, right? You need the community and the Web3 user base to actively want to buy your project. And that happens over a long-term span. That will organically establish a good price and a good floor. And twofold, from a new acquisition point of view of a user, it needs to be very well organized and very well thought out, and one that the team is successful in what they do. But for example, you need to be able to drop into any one of these quote unquote blue chip, whatever you call a blue chip, drop into their groups, drop into their social medias and look at it. If you can't make heads or tails of the information that's being thrown at you, they're probably not the ones you want to invest in, because a successful company knows how to sell a product and knows how to market that product, right? I mean, you wouldn't go to Apple if they didn't look like they knew how to advertise their products, because it's just not going to sell.
Yep. Yep. For sure. And I agree completely. I think that there's too much speculative stuff going on in the space and not enough just traditional, old school research into, operations and just fundamental analysis with NFT collections. But so that's good. Let's talk to Darkstar. This is his first time on the podcast, and we will we'll obviously have him back, periodically on here too. So this is your first words on Web3 Weekly, Darkstar. So don't screw it up.
Hey guys, thank you. 60 seconds. Yeah, I'll be short. Actually, NFT blue chips for me are slightly different because NFTs are basically digital equivalents of possessions. So people buy stuff, people buy bags, shoes, backpacks, or whatever, gold, paintings. So in the future, these possessions are going to become digital because there's a lot of things happening out there which will make people move into digital spaces like metaverses. So gaming is one use case, but for me, I'm big on metaverse because people are just going to be there. Human beings are becoming lethargic. There's viruses out there, the temperature's rising. So people are going to try and stay indoors in spaces like metaverses. And in there, again, because humankind loves possessions, you're going to have to talk about your possessions. So everything that you own in the real world would become digital. So when I choose a project, I would look at projects that are actually thinking about that future, where people are going to look at their things as possessions. And I look at blue chips as companies that are doing something with real world connotations. And we will talk about this when I talk about Artifact and how they're doing this, but that's the idea. So for me, if the company understands that there is a use case where they move something into the real world and where the metaverse sort of functions as the digital equivalent of the real world and where people want to be because the real world sucks. So that's, to me, is a blue chip. And we will, when we talk about Artifact, you will see how this is actually coming from. And we got to talk about the community as well. We got to talk about a community that understands technology, but at the same time, they're creating things that are useful to everyone. And projects that give the community tools to do that is something I look forward to. And all of this is what makes me choose a blue chip. I look at projects where they understand technology, they give out the tools to the community to make new stuff, and they constantly look in the community to pick something out and make it their product. And that's how you build a brand where people talk about it. Yeah, to me, that's how we identify what a blue chip is.
Fantastic. Yeah, and I think that's a great explanation. I think it's very important to understand the expertise of these companies, because you have some companies that come into this space and don't have a very good understanding or background in digital technologies, and that's just not a good thing, because I mean that's what all this is, right? There has to be use case, and there has to be the ability to integrate into different, and that's not something that's here a lot of times. Like a lot of times you'll just have just people building out these projects and not even having the infrastructure to hold them together. So that's something we'll hit on a little bit here in a second. So I think we want to highlight a couple projects that we have some resident kind of experts on, but I would like to talk about a few projects that me personally that I would consider blue chips in the space right now. Just a short definition of why. So I think that we've seen a up and down over the last 18 months in some of these projects, but I think that there are some pretty definable reasons why these projects will be consistently valuable for the growth of Web3. So I think number one to talk about, and what the grandfather of them all is, I think that when we're speaking of to the OGs of the space, that you can't talk about blue chip NFT projects without talking about CryptoPunks, right? I think that there's been arguments over the last year that CryptoPunks would be, overtaken by newer projects like the Bored Apes, and they didn't have any use case, and so they were just going to fade into obscurity. I don't buy any of that nonsense. I think that when you have a project with such immense historical value, the very first 10K PFP collection that ever existed on the greatest, most popular network that there is in Web3, I think is always going to have value. I think, and I don't think necessarily a lot of people, and I love utility projects, don't get me wrong, but I don't think that a project necessarily has to have utility if it has historic value in art, right? If it has the right type of art or the right type of historic value, that in itself is valuable, right? So there are things that even in real life that we consider valuable just because they have historic value connected to them, or because they're beautiful, they're artistic, right? So I think the same thing, goes with is applicable to CryptoPunks, and I think that. I mean, this is a very large level to get into. So this is not something everyone's going to be able to do. But I do think that if you're in that position to put some funds into a historical project, I don't think in the long term, in a 5 to 10 year time frame, you can go wrong with CryptoPunks. And we could do opposing arguments, but that's my personal opinion. I think that you have to mention CryptoPunks in the conversation with blue chip collections.
I'm going to disagree with that.
I can see Nate laughing.
Here he comes. Here he comes.
I'm not arguing. No, I don't. No, I'm not going to argue.
Nothing. They do nothing.
I don't argue against the use case.
I mean, he's right. I mean, they do nothing. It's true.
I do think. I think
let's hear it. Both you guys give me the opposing views, because this is what we're here for.
I don't disagree with the opinion. I do think, CryptoPunks have zero utility, and I do think it's valuable to a certain point, right? I mean, Dogecoin, same thing, right? Dogecoin is historical. It has, significant nature to people. They value it, but ultimately it had no utility for the longest time. Look at it today, right? There is a use case for it. And it's the same thing as like collector's cars or whatever you want to collect, even if you're not going to drive it anymore, right? It has valuable, tangibility to it. I would disagree, because in order for me to and I'm not going to ever advise anybody financially, but in order for me to essentially recommend it to somebody is saying that, hey, I like this thing, right? We talk about diversification. In order for you to go out and buy a CryptoPunk, you need to have the portfolio size to do it. And 95% of people in the world don't have that kind of portfolio. So if you're going to turn around, if you've got that much ETH, I would definitely turn around and diversify. There's plenty of other projects with no utility that you could invest in that I think would still be good bets long haul. But to pile that much into something that with just some historical tangibility, for me, it's not for me.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question, Nate.
Yeah.
What do you think, out of all these projects that we're going to be talking about today, they're all probably out of reach for most people because they're blue chip projects, blue chip coming from the traditional market, So what do you think about fractionalized ownership? Because you can do that with some of these. So, you could buy your own little piece of CryptoPunk or your own little piece of Mutant Ape or whatever. What's your thoughts on that?
I'm more on board with that. I like that idea. I think that I do think that's the direction we're going to be going, right? I mean, you can do the same thing with stocks right now. There's certain, brokers that allow you to do fractionalized trading. The problem that you're going to have, and I think that somebody needs to figure out a good way to do it. Maybe there's somebody out there and I'm just not sure the provider, but is who retains ownership of those assets. Coming from our Alpha Mutants, for anybody that wasn't following us early on, we essentially started as a DAO, and there are pluses and minuses to everything, but how do you get the collective whole together to run something, in a like-minded nature for the benefit of it? And how do you distribute that in a trustless way, right? I mean, because that's the key right now. Somebody's got to hold ownership of those assets, right? So who does it? Yep. And we case in point, we looked at Celsius and all these other things, and I know Darkstar's probably shaking his head right now, but you even trusting some of the biggest conglomerates in the space at the time, right? You're not guaranteed anything. So in my mind, the best security you can have is just self-custody, period. But you can't do that with the fractionalized asset unless, and this is where the future is going, there's a way that you can essentially take an NFT and fractionalize it into pieces and hold self-custody on each one of those pieces like a puzzle.
Yeah.
That's going to be coming. I do think that, but how do you do that? And the technological aspect of it is going to be a challenge.
Yep, for sure. So Darkstar, let's hear your portion of the argument with CryptoPunks. What do you feel like that?
My response would not be taken very happily by people, fundamentally because I don't understand art. I never did. So, as you said, historical value. It was a big thing. Some people thought it was amazing. Would everyone continue to think it was amazing? Is a big question mark for me. This generation would probably know CryptoPunks. The new generation may or may not know. So again, for me, a project that constantly goes out there and at least tries to do mass adoption is what's going to make it valuable. CryptoPunks are going to be for the elite. It's going to be for a certain bunch of people who are going to be rich people, and they're going to have them just like their Picassos or their fancy paintings in their warehouses. So, I mean, yeah, it's value for a certain group of people, but it's not really the kind of value that I would invest my money in right now for a 3 to 4 year window where I see some returns out of it. That's my personal point of view.
Fair enough.
It's essentially just an artist. It's almost like real world art, right? It's just for the absolute elite. Like, I don't know if you knew Darkstar, but you should probably understand art. I don't understand art, but it might be a good idea for all of us to sort of learn more about, art NFTs. But last year, go on.
I was just gonna say we could do a whole episode into the reason why fine art exists. It's a rabbit hole, guys. It's a rabbit hole.
It's a huge rabbit hole
of tax evasion.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention tax evasion is a good one. I was just gonna mention Darkstar last year. I think it was Beeple. I think sold the most expensive NFT, and it was an art NFT, and it was like $70 million.
You're right.
Absolutely nuts.
Yes, and I just want to point out that all of you guys know about art blocks. Does anyone understand art blocks? Like what the hell does it? I don't understand.
In fact, I do, and I could do a whole episode on art blocks too. So
let's do that. Let's do that at some point.
I own quite a few art blocks. I wouldn't necessarily consider them blue chips yet, but there are portions. Art. There are portions of them are because it's not really just about the art. It's about like so you've seen over the years, sometimes you'll see like there's been some really famous like very young artists, like 10 to 12 years old, and then there's been that have blown up over time frames. There's been some really famous artists, like that blind artist that I can't remember the name, but they get these niches right in the market because it's impressive, and that's really what art blocks is. Art blocks is when you look into algorithmically generated art. It gets deep, and it's almost like it's art and science had a baby, and that's what our algorithmic like art is. So there's some stuff to go to. We're not going to go on that right now because there's stuff to be done. But okay, so moving on from CryptoPunks, and I like that we had different viewpoints here, so we can kind of give like a broader idea. So let's go into the one that everyone wants to talk about. Let's talk about Bored Apes and the ecosystem now, which technically speaking, Yuga Labs technically owns CryptoPunks and Meebits now also. So we'll see what happens with that. But let's talk specifically about Bored Apes and the several collections in that ecosystem, and just the value proposition there. So I mean, I'll run it off. I think that Bored Apes have done a lot of right things, and I think they have capitalized on good and bad publicity very well. And I think that they have created such a large market cap for themselves and such a large following that they will be a successful investment for the next decade. I think I'm almost for sure of that, because now we have branches into media. We've got media deals going on with them. We have projects like what's the one, the Valet project where people can license out their Bored Apes for like media and marketing and that type of stuff. You've got like community projects. You've got they're going all over the place now. So I think that Bored Apes is an ecosystem that will be a fantastic investment over the next 5-10 years. And I think that it's even available currently in this bear market. I think there's entries available for people that aren't like astronomical, right? Because you can get into like other deeds, which I think is the biggest value prop in Bored Apes currently. I think other deeds is the best value prop there is. I would right now, if I had enough, set on the side as an investor to purchase a Bored Ape, I would more than likely purchase a bunch of other deeds, as opposed to purchasing a Bored Ape currently, because I think the value upside is much higher in that currently. But let's discuss that for a minute. So let's get some thoughts on the Bored Ape ecosystem, and then where you guys. This is what I want to know. Where would your entries be? What would you be looking to get into in that ecosystem, and where do you think the biggest value prop is currently in that particular ecosystem?
I go first.
Yep, go ahead.
All right. So for me, again, I'm a big believer of the metaverse. I don't understand art. For me, metaverse utility is something that's definitely coming. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. So the land projects are something I look at. And in this particular case, looking at the other side, land NFT itself would be my entry, because they've been doing some great work. They just released their game trailer a few days back. It actually looked pretty good. And in terms of an actual entry, something in the 2 to 3 ETH range for the BAYC ecosystem, to me, sounds like a good deal. Anything beyond that would not be something I would have the appetite for, because I just don't understand what they're planning to do. Even if they're a big brand and all of that, I haven't personally seen what they're planning to do in the future. The reason I say that is because for something like Artifact, I can tell you what they're planning, because I know what they're planning to do and what's going to happen in the next 2 to 4 months. But with Yuga, I have no idea what they're planning. Yes, they're planning to launch a metaverse. They have a land. They have this whole ecosystem with other things. How does it all come together? I don't know that. So that's for me the entry. If I want to have an exposure in BAYC, I would go buy a floor other side deed.
Fantastic, good analysis. Nate, what's your thoughts?
I've seen the Bored Ape or the other side demo, and it looks phenomenal. I've heard people that, I personally know that have played it, that the technical aspect of it, just the zero latency, playing on a browser across word, it's just the technological aspect. Oh, I'm tongue tied here, but the aspects of the technology that go into it have just been phenomenal. In my mind, I understand that the collection size is pretty massive, and when you're talking about these open worlds in the metaverse, the size matters, but at the same time, you want to get into those ones that are going to be successful, that can have the traction, because that's the only way you're going to be profitable, right? The only way that these things hold value is if the land generates profit for you, which the only way that generates profit is if you have the user base that wants to play it. For me personally, I've never been a big fan of Minecraft. I understand, I'm not hindsighted enough that I can't see value in it. I understand where other people do, but for me, I'm not a huge fan of it. To me, it's like you can almost create it from nothing very easily. I think so. I'm not dissing NFT worlds and stuff. The collection sizes are much better there as far as profitability goes. But the only land I would be actually looking to acquire and hold long term would be Other Deed. Just because of the nature of the Bored Ape ecosystem. I personally, unless Bored Apes came down to sub 5 ETH, I probably wouldn't buy any, just myself. I think I'm with you, Kenny. I think the land itself is the play there for the long term. I'm a much bigger believer in that. And part of it is, Bored Ape, what they've done. If anybody argues that they're not successful, I'll show them the door, because what they've done is phenomenal. But for me personally, I'm with, Darkstar in this. I don't think the utility, and maybe it's just because I haven't followed Yuga enough, I do think that what they're doing is fantastic. I think that they have an ecosystem that will continue to grow. They've obviously got the major traction in the world. If I went to somebody today and was like, the average person was like, have you ever heard of NFT worlds? They would say no. But if I said, hey, 50% of people have probably heard of a Bored Ape and don't even know what crypto is, right? That tells you that ecosystem is not dying by any means. And so if I was looking to get into any sort of metaverse game, play anything like that, I would go with the one that the average household could understand and know. And to me, when I look at AAA games, like the graphics and shit on there and the gameplay and the physics of it, like that's going to compete with Grand Theft Auto and shit right there. I mean, it just is, right? And those are the games that you want to be around because you're going to have a user base for the next 10 years, right?
Well, and I think also, and I'll let Link give his thoughts here in just a second, but I think that we're talking about 4 different value props over these 4 different collections we're talking about today, because with, we're talking about historical value with CryptoPunks and with, when we get into like, Clonex and Rect Capital, I think we're talking about a proposition to give utility and onboard a mass amount of people, right? So I think that's a different type of value prop. And then with Bored Apes, I think the entire value prop of Bored Apes is a narrative. I think it is a universe that's being created. And I'm not against that. I think storytelling is super fucking powerful, and I think that's 90% of what Bored Apes is. It's just setting up this story about these apes bored in a swamp, and I mean it's a ridiculous story, right? But for some reason, it has resounded with people, and they continue to build this narrative about these apes, focusing around these apes, and it has just done massively well. So I mean, you see that in some. I don't understand like cartoon sitcoms and stuff either, but some of them get super popular. Like, I mean, like, I don't understand Family Guy. I don't understand American Dad. I don't understand where those things got popular. I just don't see it. I've never have. But that is comparable to me to what Bored Apes is. It's just something that people have just latched onto and they feel some kind of a kinship with. And this developing universe and narrative has just exploded. So I think it's a different value prop than some of the other stuff we're talking about. But I'll let Link close out our section on Bored Apes and with just his thoughts about the ecosystem real quick.
Yeah, I think the best bang for buck right now is probably watching that floor on the land and seeing if you can figure out like rarities and all that kind of stuff. But I'm sure a lot of people have already set up, snipers for certain rarities getting listed at a certain price and blah blah blah. But
Guilty.
I think the land at the moment, yeah, guilty. So yeah, I think the land is probably the cheapest, like easiest foot in the door for that right now. And I think, yeah, like everyone else has said, you sort of can't go wrong with a project like that. I mean, it's backed by so much money. Like they've just got fuck you money that I wouldn't be surprised if tomorrow they come out and they say, oh, we've just bought the Dallas Cowboys and they're now called the Bored Cowboys or something like that. Like I can see it happening. And then, you just watch the floor go up and like all ape holders will have free tickets to Dallas Cowboy games forever or something like that.
I mean, they are, Yuga is like 60 some % of the market right now, of the entire NFT market. So, I mean, when you have that much of a whole,
that's it really.
I mean, it's a monopoly, right? Like, I mean, we and any NFT lover has to. I don't understand why anyone hates on like Yugo Labs projects, because I mean, if they go down, we're all going down, boys. Yeah. Like it's we're crashing and burning. The ship's over. I mean, the fun's over for a couple years because it'd take a lot to get back from that. But all right, so
it's a bit like how people hate Bitcoin, right? It's like if that goes down, we're all screwed.
Yeah. I don't understand Bitcoin haters either. I never have. Like, I mean,
no, me neither.
It's the largest part of the market.
I got a quick list here for anyone that's interested that these are the bunch of celebrities that are holding Bored Apes. Not that it means anything, but these celebrities have a lot of followings, people just tend to mimic them. I got a little bit of a list here. So we got Justin Bieber owns one, Post Malone, DJ Khaled, Jimmy Fallon, like Shaq, KSI, Snoop Dogg, Logan Paul, Eminem apparently owns one. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Serena Williams, Paris Hilton, Gwyneth Paltrow, Ozzy Osbourne, Madonna, and Seth Green. Actually, have you guys heard of the Seth Green story?
Yes. Where he got his a hacker got his
got his ape stolen. He fell for a scam website that was like a clone website of a a mint he was supposed to do, and it just drained it straight from his wallet. And then I think the guy ended up selling it back to him, right, for like quadruple the price. or something. Of
Yeah,
the
it's
floor.
crazy.
It's
Because he
crazy.
held it hostage. They'd already developed the series at that point.
Yeah.
Um,
I will for a disclosure on this, guys. Though, so this is something that is not known to the public. So if you want some alpha here, here's some alpha for you. Okay. So there are hype cycles, and Bored Apes is very good about partnering and doing collab hype cycles. So I would venture to say, and this has been verified by a few people, but so some of those celebrities on that list don't actually own their Bored Apes. Okay. So there's a collaboration with Bored Apes and what is it, MoonPay, I believe. So MoonPay is a way to take fiat and purchase NFTs without actually transferring it to crypto, right? So what MoonPay did is you can look into their on-chain data, and MoonPay has actually purchased some Bored Apes and a few other larger collections, and had deals with certain celebrities to say that they purchased them through MoonPay for exposure, but don't actually own the assets themselves. Okay, so that is verifiable. So a lot of people aren't aware of that, but so there are games that are played with these larger projects, right? When you're talking about big money like that, millions of dollars in transactions. Now, that's not to say that all of them are. You know, there's a majority of them that have been purchased and stuff. But when you see celebrities that say, "Oh yeah, and I bought it and I used MoonPay," that probably means that they're under contract to say that, right? Because you don't need to say that you use MoonPay to do it, right? So like Jimmy Fallon, when he bought his, he said MoonPay like 14 times while he was talking about it.
Really?
So, but now Paris Hilton never mentioned it, right? So so she probably bought it legitimately, and Jimmy Fallon probably had some sort of contract with MoonPay that he had to, do this or that. So you got to watch.
Well, let me throw this out there, okay? So for anybody that doesn't know, like I'm a big Eminem fan, probably one of my favorite artists out there. Snoop Dogg, everybody obviously knows how deep Snoop Dogg is in the NFT space. I mean, got his hands in just about everything. And he like naturally just like buys into the space, right? Nobody's paying him on it. But so Snoop Dogg and Eminem actually at the Bored Ape Fest, which was the NFT conference, right? That came up. They dropped a live concert there. And they dropped a new music video that features both of their apes as
sick.
Them.
It was sick. I loved it.
Keep this in mind. It's actually up for like one of the top music video awards right now in the world for voting. So if that doesn't tell you exposure, right? Like it's not just like they showed up and did one concert to like a bunch of, ape fans. They did, but this has like it reach way outside of crypto, and it probably will for the next years, to come. So keep those type of things in mind, because those are the ones that you want to follow.
Yep, for sure. All right. Okay. So let's get on to these last two. So we're going to have between 15 and 20 minutes to go into each of these two subjects. So we're going to talk about two collections that we actually have some actual deep dive research in, and we can give you guys some real, save you, dozens of hours of research into this and give you some quick information about these projects. So I'm going to start with Dark Star here. So he is our resident Clonex, capital, expert here in the Discord. So he's always talking about him, always shilling them, and I tend to agree with most of the stuff he says. So we're gonna basically what we're gonna do is Dark Star, if you don't mind, just give us an overview of the collection itself. Talk about some of the we may not be able to go into every single collection that they have, but let's talk about some of the pertinent ones. And then, what the value proposition is in those, what the future plans are, and then maybe talk about where you think some of the best entry points would be for beginners, intermediate, and then like long-term investors, and give us some info on the ecosystem.
Sure, man. Okay. So stop me at any point in time if I sound like a fanboy, but I'm just going to give you guys a very quick rundown of what actually happened. Okay. So just before the 22nd of October last year, there used to be a company called Artifact. That's the word Artifact, ARTIFACT. And they removed the vowels from the word and they made it RTFKT. So it's still pronounced Artifact. So this company has been quietly doing NFT projects with some of the big names out there. But the fact is, it was very quiet. It wasn't out there. There was a lot of marketing. There was things happening in the background. So just to give you an idea, they were working with Atari. They were working with an artist called Feocious. I don't know if you know, he's a very young artist. He's working with them. He's working with Jeff Staple, who is a big brand in the US. He was working with a Japanese artist called Murakami. So all of this was happening in the background. And then on the 22nd of October, they launched a project with 20,000 NFTs called Clonex. It was a Dutch auction, which went terribly. It was extremely bad. It created so much FUD that people, they had to stop the mint. And then eventually it reopened and it minted out in 37 minutes for 2 ETH a piece. 20,000 people or 20,000 NFTs were then out there, or 20,000 Clonex were out there. And all through the time until December 21st, they were around 2.67 floor, and people were like, just another massively expensive NFT project, but people were holding it. But on the 21st of December 2021, they dropped a massive news when they said that Nike had acquired them. So that's when everything changed, because when a big brand like Nike goes and buys an NFT studio, people start to take notice. And that's when Artifact became popular, because that news made everyone wonder, why is a company like Nike buying an NFT studio? And therein lies the rest of this conversation, because you need to understand why they are doing this. And I'm going to break this up into 4 parts, because to understand Artifact, you need to look at these 4 parts separately. So the first one is fashion and art. So Artifact is a fashion and art company. If you know a brand like Supreme, they want to be supreme in the digital world. So they want to create fashion and art together. And this is how they do it. They do it with collabs. So they tie up with Murakami, they tie up with Ferocious, they tie up with Lime Gang, they tie up with Jeff Staple, and they build things in the ecosystem that have real world collaborations. So they have this concept of buying NFT and then forging it. And that's point number 2, which Artifact calls world merging. World merging means you take the digital world and the physical world and you merge it together. So forging means you buy an NFT and then you're able to forge it into a real thing. So for example, if you bought a pair of Artifact shoes, which are branded Jeff Staple, then you can forge it into a Jeff Staple branded pair of shoes. That's the beauty of this thing. You have a NFT, which is digital, and you have a IRL equivalent as a pair of shoes, which is the same thing. And that's where Artifact's core competency lies. They are trying to build products that will exist in the digital world as well as the physical world. There are many examples of this that they have done. So there are these shoes that they're doing, there are jackets, there are hoodies, there are a bunch of other things that's going on. The list of collabs they have done so far is as long as my arm, but I'm going to give you some examples which you might probably wonder about. So I don't know if you know that there's a men's perfume company called Byredo, and they have just done a collab with Byredo. Why, you ask? Well, you see, that's the point. You are trying to do a project where you have collaborations with actual real world things, and that creates value. So when you go and buy perfume that has the Artifact logo on it, you're like, oh, I mean, what is this brand trying to do? It's trying to reach into my space and do things with me in the real world as well. So all of this would not be possible if Nike wasn't there, because Nike provides them the supply chain. Nike provides them that entire infrastructure to be part of the IRL merchandising space. So creating fashion, creating art is not enough. You need a way to deliver it, and Nike provides that delivery. In return, what does Nike get? See, that's the most amazing part. It's a symbiotic relationship. Nike is not only a shoe company, it's an apparel company. It does everything top to toe. So when they get a community that is electronic, that is digital, and that is willing to buy electronic stuff and then convert it to physical stuff, they have a new market. And no one can argue that we have to find ways to go into that market sooner or later. You have to be in that space. And Nike found this and went straight in. So far, they have not made a mistake, because last week, Nike's first artifact hoodie was forged, wherein people were given a digital hoodie, and they were able to forge that digital hoodie into a physical hoodie. Hear me out on this one, because this is going to get a bit complicated. Once the physical hoodie arrives at your doorstep, the hoodie has a QR code on it and an NFC chip on it. You can then hook up your digital NFT to the physical hoodie, and using augmented reality in the future, you can do stuff with that physical hoodie and convert it to digital content. There are motion markers on the hoodie in the shape of giant crosses. And it is speculated that we will soon have software from Artifact, which will allow me to do something like this. Let's say I'm walking down the mall wearing a hoodie. I take a video of that. I can then convert that video into my clone, because I have everything I need that hoodie has on it to convert that data. So we don't have this yet, but this is being discussed. This is being speculated, and this will allow me to merge my daily life into the digital metaverse. Okay,
Nice.
so that brings me to the third point, which is the creator community. Now, Artifact is constantly giving you stuff to do. So last month, they gave every clone holder the digital 3D files of every clone. So now I can create anything I want with my clone, or as many clones I have. I have the unique 3D files for Blender, for Unity, for 3 other platforms, and I can go knock myself out. I can build whatever I want. And that's what's happening. You see, by doing this, they have mobilized the entire community to start building content. And it's happening. It's really happening. They are creating amazing content. They are creating movies. They're creating games. They're creating, these amazing little nuggets of stuff going around here and there. Some people are putting them on hoverboards. Some people are putting them in their cars. It's just, the thing is that this is how you create mass adoption, because people have this fun thing now where they can create whatever they want. It's just fucking beautiful. And that brings me to point number 4. One of the things that Artifact is trying to do is create a functional metaverse. What do I mean when I say a functional metaverse? So every clone holder was airdropped something known as a space pod. A space pod is fundamentally an apartment. It has rooms inside it, it has doors inside it, and it has spaces where you can do things, programmable spaces. So you can put your NFT on it. You can program it to do something when you put a command into it. Most people have converted these apartments into online galleries for their NFTs, because you can basically put them in there and you can invite other people to come in there and watch that. So it's like, hey, do you want to come and hang in my space and have some beers? That's the IRL one. In the future, hey, do you want to come in to hang into my digital space? So that's what Artifact's done. It's a functional metaverse. And here's the best part. Within this space pod, there are doors, and these doors cannot be unlocked right now. They cannot be opened. Reason being, no one knows what's behind those doors. Even Artifact doesn't know. The point is that in the future, it is speculated that each of these doors will be like gateways or portals. I'm gonna take a moment here and remind you of a movie called Ready Player One. Do you remember how you could go from one space to another space? Like you can go from this casino to a Planet Doom, So there's like a gateway in the middle. So there's like a portal or something. That's what's gonna happen, in my opinion. They're going to have these portals through these gates, which will connect to other ecosystems. And remember, that's a metaverse. A metaverse cannot be just Bored Ape, cannot be just Artifact, cannot be just Cool Cats. They have to connect to each other. Otherwise, it doesn't really work. It has to be interoperable. So that's what's happening. They are trying to figure out how to do that. The space pods, every holder of a space pod was airdropped something known as a loot pod. And the loot pods have the Nike logo on it. So it is speculated that because it has the Nike logo on it, Nike is going to be able to do something in there. So that creates value in people's minds that, hey, why would Nike put their logo on something unless they have some plans behind it? So again, non-functional, not financial advice. It's pure speculation, but it's educated speculation based on things that we are looking at. To answer your question about entry points, so quite a few. The easiest entry point right now would be to buy the digital wearable, the first Nike digital wearable, which is the Artifact hoodie. The Artifact hoodie exists as a digital wearable, which you can put on your clone now. And in the future, you would be able to put it on other assets. We don't know how, but that's the plan. It's currently at 0.14 ETH, and that's the cheapest entry into the Artifact ecosystem because we know that it will have future utility. Forging has already happened, so you cannot claim a physical hoodie anymore, but the digital NFT still has utility in the future. The next entry point would be either a loot pod or a space pod, because that's below a ETH. Loot pods are at 0.3 right now. Space pods are at 0.67 to 0.7 right now. But we already know that space pod burning is inbound. Space pod burning means you can take one space pod, another space pod, one space pod and a loot pod, put them together, burn them, and get something bigger. That would be the next edition of the metaverse for them, or the next edition of their space for them. But that's the plan. We don't know when it's going to drop, but that's on the roadmap next. And then after that, the next entry point would be your monoliths. So the monoliths have three things inside it. The monoliths have the crypto kicks, which is the Nike's digital shoe aimed at sneakerheads out there. The beauty of this thing is that we don't know this yet, but it's designed in this way. And again, I'm just gushing here. And again, we don't know this for sure, but we expect that the crypto kicks will have forging, meaning you can forge an actual shoe for the NFT you hold.
That's pretty awesome.
These shoes would have screens on them, and using something known as the Evo vial, you can change the colors on the shoe.
Nice.
That's the plan. So when you unlock your monolith, inside the monolith, you get three things. You get a crypto kick, a shoe, you get a vial, which is themed across the 4 DNAs of the clones, and you get a smaller monolith. No one knows what's inside this monolith, but this monolith has the Nike logo on it again. So the thing about Artifact is that there's always a tease at some point, and that tease always makes some sense. So we need to think about what that tease is. But monoliths right now are at 3 ETH, so that's a pretty high entry point. And the last one is the God tier, which is the clone itself. At the moment, it's trading at 8.5 ETH for the lowest DNA, which is human. And then there's angel DNA, there's reptile DNA, and there's robot DNA. So based on the rarity, the price will go up. But a basic human at this point would be 8.5 ETH. And that's God tier. We all know that holding a clone is continued value. It will continue to have value because at the end of the day, there's only ever going to be 20,000 of them. Questions?
Fantastic. Oh my God, man. There's so many things you could ask about that. So I'll give a comment. So some comments. So I think that like even me looking into, I've looked into the ecosystem a little bit over the past couple months, but I think that having so many different levels of in real life value is phenomenal. And when you were talking about potentially getting the shoes made, that kind of, I'm not real big on hoodies and stuff, but man, if I can get something and be able to design my own shoe, that's pretty awesome.
Kenny, you got to remember, sneakerheads is a huge community, huge. In the US, you have stadium goods and all that stuff. That I don't know this stuff myself, but I know that there's a massive sneakerhead community. They love shoes. They don't necessarily wear them, but they buy them. There's a huge community out there. So that's what Nike is trying to look at.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that you really explained that in portions like really well, because I know it's a super complex ecosystem, and like explaining that in sections I think gave me a lot better idea. But I think it's this is going to be funny because we'll see some comparable details between the Clonex ecosystem and you know, not in Nike and the ecosystem of Pixel Vault, because it's quite similar, some of the structure, but it looks like, you know, to have, I like the fact that they tell you what they're doing in the immediate future, but they're not overextending themselves or over promising, like you said, with the doors and the space pods. It's like we don't know where that's going to go yet. These things are in development and figuring it out. But I do think that if it does end up going to where their idea is to create a interchangeable, you know, cross-chain, cross-platform way to interact in other ecosystems, I mean, I think that's a money shot, because I do believe, exactly like you said, that is where all of this is heading. It's all heading to where I can have my own personal online identity, whether that be a Clonex or a CryptoPunk or a Cool Cat or a Meebit or whatever it is, and I can use that online identity in the other deeds, you know, ecosystem, in the sandbox, in, you know, whatever. And I think that's exactly where we're going. So, I mean, very impressive, man. So I think I would challenge anyone that's listening to this, you know, definitely jump in more into the ecosystem. And if you have any questions, obviously, you know, we only gave him like 15-20 minutes here, but if you have any questions, please jump in the Discord. And I swear, if you ping Darkstar and say anything about Clonex or Nike or Rect Capital, he will be on it. He'll be there to explain to you what's going on. If you ever just randomly drop, you know, what should I get into next? Yeah, it'll be him. He'll be the one telling you what you need to get into the ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that it's very difficult to go wrong with this project long term. It's not going to be a flip. I promise you that. It cannot be a flip. But long term, everything has value. Everything. And there's a price point for everyone. So all you got to do is just do some research and study, and you will see what I'm talking about. And of course, as Kenny said, I'm always here. Just drop me in Discord or tag me on Discord and ask me, and I'm happy to help anytime.
100%. And I think that's a cool thing, because as we talked about our first couple projects we talked about, there's really not great entry points for anybody. You have to have some kind of money to be thrown around and everything. But with Clonex and the you know, the ecosystem with Nike and Rect Capital and all this stuff, Artifact, with that ecosystem, there are entry points for pretty much anyone. And then also in Pixel Vault, there's entries for pretty much anyone. So if you're looking to get into a potentially blue chip projects, those two are more accessible as far as that stuff goes. So a little bit over. I'm going to try to get this done in about 15 minutes. So the next project we're talking about in our final project is going to be Pixel Vault. So I'm going to try to go through this super quickly. It's quite complicated too. I probably won't do as good a job as Darkstar did, but let's talk about Pixel Vault. Let's talk about why I believe they're the most undervalued potential blue chip play in the space currently, and some of the best entry points into some blue chip projects that are out there. So Pixel Vault is a very complex ecosystem, but it started out very simply. So Pixel Vault started out with a few founders that came together. The head founder, the most vocal founder, would be G-Funk, totally doxed the team, by the way, but the founders came together. There was 4 initially, and they had, between them all, they had, I believe, 16 CryptoPunks that they had between the 4 founders. So that what they decided to do was to put those 16 CryptoPunks into one treasury wallet and to create a project based around the IPs of those CryptoPunks. So what that became was Punks Comics. So this was probably the first derivative project that ever existed in the space, right? Because the first true derivative, because what they had done was they had taken their IP right, that what was thought to be IP rights at the time, right? Which later on that gets convoluted, but at the time it was thought that, you know, you could take any of your CryptoPunk IP rights and you could do whatever you wanted with them, right? So that's what they did. They created a Punks comic with 16 different CryptoPunks they owned the rights to. They created lore behind them, and they launched Punks Comic 1. And that's been over a year ago. It's been about 14 months ago at this point. So when that happened, it took a month to sell out, I think. So they sold 10,000 copies. It took about a month to sell out. It was not a huge sold out process. So then we had what is Punk's Comics 1. So technically speaking, Punk's Comics 1 is the very first item in the Pixel Vault universe. Okay. So after Punk's Comics 1, what happened was that they started to build out the governance ecosystem for this project because they decided they wanted to create a media company and continue to put out these comics and things of that nature. So what they did was, and this is the one word that you're going to hear a dozen times when talking about Pixel Vault, is gamification and game theory. So what they decided to do is throughout their entire ecosystem build out was to create this game theory to where you have a valuable item. Now you can keep that valuable item and potentially it becomes more valuable, or down the road it might be used to get you a different valuable item, or you could burn or merge that valuable item to get something else, right? So they've done this dozens of times over their collections. So the first one was that if you owned a Punk's Comic 1, they wanted to create a DAO structure to govern the wallet that controlled the 16 CryptoPunks, right? And controlled a portion of the aftermarket, the treasuries that were going into the wallet. So they said, well, we're going to do this. And the only way that you can do this is if you burn your Punk's Comic, you will get a Founders DAO token. So you have to burn your Punk's Comic in order to get a Founders DAO token. So there was a percentage of people that burnt their Punk's Comics for Founders DAO tokens. I think currently there's about 5,800 or so of the Founders DAO tokens. So then there's the Founders DAO tokens, and then what happened was they continued to expand the ecosystem into additional comics. They continued to expand the ecosystem into what they call mint passes. So they were the first group of NFT project, the first NFT project to use a system of minting. That basically what they did is their minting system, and I'm not sure what the technical term is, but their minting system, what it would do is when you go to mint on Pixel Vault, it retains the minimal amount of information needed to section off the mint. And then on the back end, the data is processed off chain on the back end and then sent back to chain, so that they have the lowest minting fees in existence, absolutely lowest minting fees in existence. So they popularized this. They also popularized the system for using mint passes or these placeholders to be able to go and mint whatever these passes go for. So for their mint passes, they were used to mint their first PSP collection, which was the MetaHero generative identities. And you could take the passes and reserve your spot. So it had really great minting processes. So what happened was, and I'm going to I wrote these down so I wouldn't do this convolutedly, because they have in excess of 23 different current collections and projects. So I'm going to just name off some of these, and then I'm going to read you a description of how the ecosystem kind of fits together. So we already talked about Punk's Comics 1 and the Founders DAO. They also have currently now they have Punk's Comics 2 out, which is the second edition of the Punk's Comics. They have the original Mint Pass, which is a Mint Pass 1. Those that hold the Mint Pass 1 can still burn that Mint Pass to get a generative identity, or they can hold that Mint Pass and potentially have a raffle ticket to be airdropped a core identity. There is also the core MetaHero identity. So a core identity there currently is 108 on the market. There was 120, I believe. So there's still like a dozen or so that have to be dropped. But these, instead of doing generative layers to create their PFP project, what they did was they created 120 characters and then took the generative aspects from those characters and they used those as the generative layers in the MetaHeroes generative collection. So it's a really interesting thing. They've never sold a core, a MetaHero core. They've always airdropped those. Those are currently at a floor of 50 ETH. Currently, they've been as high as 120 or so ETH. So they're very interesting. If you look at that collection, you can check it out. They also now have Mint Pass 2s, which are being held for their second MetaHeroes collection, which is the MetaHero sidekicks. You'll be able to burn those Mint Pass 2s to get a sidekick, and there will be levels. So you can burn 1 to get a base level sidekick. There's a speculation that you'll be able to burn up to 20 to get like the highest level sidekicks. So there's going to be a reduction in those also. Then we have the MetaHeroes Planet DAOs, which is a collection of 11 different planet tokens that are going to represent fractionalized ownership in each of the planets that will be playable in the Meta Heroes game that is scheduled to go into beta in the late third to early fourth quarter this year. They also have collaboration projects with Nike, or not Nike, Adidas. The Adidas Originals was a collaboration project. You will see their CryptoPunk on the Adidas Originals artwork. They've also recently dropped another collection. We All Gonna Make It United, or WAGMI United, which is the football team that Pixel Vault owns. It's actually under Pixel Vault Sport currently. So those are some of the collections. There's many others. They've done Bored Ape collaborations. They have tons of derivative projects that are sanctioned by the company. So we won't go into all that stuff because it's just too much. They also, so that they have a 10-year contract with Adidas. They have they own the football company now called We All Gonna Make It United. They had secured a first round of funding of $100 million from Velvet Sea Ventures. So if you don't know Velvet Sea Ventures, they've been in the space since the beginning of crypto, and they've been in over 45 angel fundings of different projects in the space. So that they're currently funding, and there's going to be 2 more rounds of funding from them, speculated to be in the 100-200 million range. So probably an access of $400 to $500 million by the time that those rounds get finished. That's going on. So let me give you a quick explanation of how the ecosystem works. This is the easiest way to do it. So if you're looking at Pixel Vault, they have 3 companies, or three branches of the company, which is Meta Heroes, which is their gaming release that's coming up. That would encompass the Meta Heroes, the Meta Hero Sidekicks collections, and the core Meta Heroes. Those will all be under the Meta Heroes blanket of the company. You have Punk's Comics, which is all the continuing digital comic books that's coming out. It also includes the Founders DAO, the mint passes for the comics, etc. So then you have Pixel Vault Sports, which was founded for the purchase of the We All Gonna Make It United, and now encompasses their contract with the UFC, because they have been contracted to drop the UFC's upcoming NFT collections. So they're doing that. And then as a side, they have a community projects team that's consisted of, I believe, 6 people now, and these people help assist people that are making community projects. So some good examples currently are, you can look, there's a comic series called The Pinballer, which is one of the generative identities that a community member purchased, and then he has taken his rights to that and created his own comic from Pinballer. There is several there's one that's being used for toys, I believe. There's been one that's been Moonlings was one. So Moonlings was a like a cartoony art project that mimicked the Meta Heroes, and their value prop was that they were going to purchase as many Meta Heroes as possible to stake them in their community treasury to collect the PAL token, which is the governance token and currency for the Meta Heroes game that's coming out. So there's a lot of community projects, derivative projects that Pixel Vault actively helps develop, and that I think that's pretty cool. So in that structure with the 3 companies and the community projects, there is Pixel Vault itself, which is the core company. There is the Founders DAO, and then there is the Up DAO. So these are the 3 governing bodies of all of the different umbrellas that is Pixel Vault. So let me explain to you really quickly. I just wrote these down. Do this as quickly as we can. So Pixel Vault is a Web3 focused media company built from the ground up to embrace their community. The Pixel Vault team has spent the first half of 2022 working behind the scenes, building an infrastructure that will enable them to build great IP franchises alongside the dedicated collectors who have believed in Pixel Vault brand along the way. Their goal with this complex infrastructure is simple: empower the community to build alongside us. So This is going to be this is an excerpt from some articles that I think that do well about explaining how all this works. So bridging the gap between centralized media creation and a decentralized ethos under which Pixel Vault was founded required them to reimagine how the relationship between community and company is structured. Their focus has been to create a collaboration loop with the community while also providing independent resources that allow ideas to become actions. So they solve this by creating multiple treasuries that are governed by decentralized autonomous organizations or DAOs, allowing them to segregate community assets from Pixel Vault, from the actual company Pixel Vault. So they're engaging and empowering the communities by turning governance decisions to these governing functions. So the Founders DAO. So this is speaking of the Founders DAO that is controlled by the 5,902 Founders DAO NFTs. Okay, so what Nate actually just purchased there a day or so ago. So and this is about a month-old article, so it may not be completely up to date, but it says in March, community governance of the Founders DAO Treasury went live using available off-the-shelf tools. Founders DAO was seeded with a mix of assets that are historical to the blockchain ecosystem, including Pixel Vault assets, NFTs for various projects, and one-for-one art by artists such as Hackatao, Fuck Render, and Kill Acid. There are 5,902 Founders DAO tokens, each of which serve as one vote for the DAO decisions and were created through a burn decision from the holders of the Punks Comic 1 issue. Since the launch of the governance tool, the Founders DAO community is establishing its identity alongside Pixel Vault. Several proposals have been put forth by many different community members, some of which passed with success and others failed, either due to lack of quorum or a failed vote. Either way, Pixel Vault is inspired by the level of community engagement that we've seen since the launch. One of the Founders DAO's early actions was to create a communications committee that worked closely with Pixel Vault, an initial step in building out the collaboration loop. Other successful proposals included creating reward systems for community-generated content, using their treasury of assets, setting up a legal wrapper for the DAO, and accepting free claims from other projects. The Founders DAO Communications Committee has been integral in highlighting key proposals on social channels to ensure quorum is met for these votes. So that's currently what's going on. So the Founders DAO is just an asset that was given to the community to closely work beside Pixel Vault. So to give you an idea of what kind of control this has. So in the Pixel Vault treasury currently, there is 7,887 Ethereum, which is something like $16.5 million currently, and there are 614 million POW token, which is currently valued at something like $60 million, right? So these are the core crypto assets in that ecosystem. So Pixel Vault itself only controls 40% of the governance of this system. The Founders DAO controls 10%, and the Planetary DAO holders control 48% or 45% of the governance. So it looks like in that breakdown that the Founders DAO actually controls the least amount, but they are also the smallest number of holders. So technically speaking, they actually have a larger portion of control of the actual assets in the treasury because of the fact that there's such a small portion, because there's 50,000 holders in the Planetary DAO holdings as opposed to 5,000 in the DAO, the DAO. So those structures are what is allowing Pixel Vault to partner with and develop media, because that's what the goal is of Pixel Vault, is to develop a media system. So unlike this is really interesting, because unlike Artifacts, who had Nike come and purchase the studio, and they're just basically completely integrated with Nike, Pixel Vault has not sold or given any kind of rights of the company away to anyone but their holders. So their holders technically control 55% of Pixel Vault, right, of the entire company. So they have the structure that's how it works. So what's interesting with them is as opposed to doing those type of being purchased or like completely integrating with companies, they have done these strategic partnerships to bring different companies into the Web3 space. So that started with Adidas, and now it's going on with Major League Football, and it's going on with the UFC, and they've got several other sports that they're bringing into it, on the sports side, and then also in game development. So they're working on game development with some big studios and stuff too. They actually purchased a gaming development studio a few months ago. It wasn't a huge one. It was like a mid-level gaming studio, but they purchased one. So they're working into that too. So that being said, I could go on more because I really didn't even have any time to talk about the UpDAO, which is another big part of it, but we're running really late here, so I'm not going to go into it. So if you guys want to know more about Pixelwatt, obviously come into the Discord and we'll talk a little bit more about it. But as far as entry points with that, I think in Pixel Vault, the best entry points would be probably to get into a Founders DAO. The Punks comics are still at, I think, a 5 to 7 ETH4. They kind of fluctuate on, so that's kind of out of reach of a lot of people. But the Founders DAO, I believe, was even below 1 ETH for a moment. I think they're setting at about 1 ETH right now currently. But I think that's a monumentous place to get into. And it's there. If you go into the Discord that is sectioned off of the Founders DAO, there are some immensely smart people in there, great alpha, and the way that they have taken care of the community is it's the best operating DAO I've ever seen in the space. 100% best operating DAO I've ever seen in the space. So fantastic. I believe the Meta Heroes generative identities are at a best rate they've been in a while. I think you can pick those up currently for they're setting at a floor of
like 1 1/4 or something like that.
Yeah, 1 1/4. So not a terrible entry. If that's too expensive for your blood to jump into the ecosystem, there's the cheapest entry right now is Mint Pass 2s, which they're down there because they haven't been they haven't gotten to the burn mechanism with them yet, but they will be in the future used to burn to get Meta Hero sidekicks, which will have a big part to play in the gaming ecosystem. They're very inexpensive currently. I believe they're about $70-$80. You can pick up one of those, or 0.5 ETH, I believe 0.50 or 0.054 ETH, something of that nature. So that's a good entry point, I think. I also think in their collabs, getting involved with Adidas Originals is a pretty interesting thing because there are claims on those that you can do in the future. So I mean, that would be my suggestions to get into the ecosystem. Now, since the game is coming up, the planetary DAOs are also looking pretty interesting because I believe that the cheapest entry is 0.04 on a planetary DAO. So once again, about $60-$70 that you can get into on those. And those planetary DAOs will have individual governance in each of the planets that will be used in the Meta Hero ecosystem. So very interesting stuff to look into for that. So I think that I'm going to cut it off there because we went up quite a bit over what we're supposed to go on to, but I hope that gave you guys, everybody here today, some just insight into what we look at in when we're looking into, categorizing potential long-term blue chip holds in the NFT space. And so, I mean, I'm sure you can see from the complexity of both, Artifact Studios and Pixel Vault that these are companies that are run with an idea that 10 years down the road that they're going to be development happening. They're running with a very forward-thinking mindset. And I think that is what differentiates them between a lot of these other projects that are just dropping dives and cash grabs and they don't really have the team or the development to be able to move forward with these type of things. So I hope that helped you out. So let's just do closing comments from everybody, and we'll close out here, and I'll do a couple things real quick. So Link, any closing comments on blue chip NFTs, on anything that we've discussed today?
Yeah, so people have to look at it like 99% of projects out there are pretty much like you said, they're quick flip, like cash grab, no future utility, no actual backing behind them, no competent teams, no plan, no like actual roadmap that they're going to stick to. So I think with people wanting to invest in blue chips, you're probably best off trying to flip these small things, almost, yeah, pretty much like flipping small things to build some liquidity to get into these bigger, blue chip plays. That's something I'm personally working on myself as well, because like, a Clonex and, even like some of the ape like ecosystem, it's all just like well above my sort of budget at the moment. But if I were to look into getting anything, I would start off with like, the absolute the cheapest entry points into these things, because they're not going away anytime soon.
100%. Nate, any closing comments on blue chips, advice for the community?
Yeah, no, so my top pick would probably be, like Kenny said, I picked up a Founders DAO for the Pixel Vault, and I did a deep dive into their space last night and kind of their socials and stuff, and like was blown away. I knew a little bit about it, but I was, you're barely scratching the surface on what, Kenny just went over, or what, Darkstar went over with their ecosystems, and deep dive into it, because, for example, just told the Founders DAO, you get first dibs essentially on any new collection that they come out with for Pixel Vault. So, it has utility beyond just being a DAO. But, I looked at their wallet and everything. They hold 3 mutant apes. They hold 3 bored apes. They hold a bunch of other, loose assets too that are valued extremely high. So the amount of money in that ecosystem is ridiculous. And so I would just advocate, find those projects that you guys can truly believe in, truly see that they're actually building. There's some tangibility behind it. And I'll give you a prime example real quick on the Pixel Vault stuff. And this is just because I looked into it. So 2 things that really got me, and they're very, very simple aspects. One, you dive in, if you hold the Pixel Vault Founders DAO token, you get access to their Pixel Vault Founders DAO section, which in that section has an alpha channel. Their alpha, it's so well thought out that they even upvote, it's kind of like a liking system on Twitter. They even upvote the alpha. So it has to have like 6 upvotes from a Founders DAO member to go into like the actual like premium alpha channel. That is the simplicity of that, but the organization is phenomenal. I mean, that alone tells me that they have their shit together, that they understand how to run it. And 2, and more importantly, they have a disclaimer on their DAO section that they organize. And for anybody that's never been a part of a DAO, it's very, very fundamentally flawed, most DAOs. But theirs in itself has a disclaimer on there that says, as Kenny's talked about, they went over the burn mechanism. You could swap out your initial pass for a Founders DAO, burn it, and get a Founders DAO token. They have a disclaimer on there that says no more will ever be minted. But the disclaimer also follows up. It says, but in the instance that the DAO, should the DAO choose to vote on minting more, it could do that. Like it could open up the rest of the contract and mint out the rest. And that right there is a true DAO. There's no governance that overrides for the longevity of the project. It's up to the DAO to determine what they want to do. And that is success right there. And that's going to tell you that it's going to be around long term.
For sure. And as I said, I think it's the best functioning DAO structure I've seen in the entire space. And I've seen 100 different DAOs, and I think it's the best layout I've seen to date. So, and then Darkstar, you got any closing comments on just anything we want to leave the community with? Final words on the blue chips, on Artifact, on anything that we talked about.
Can I share my screen? Is that okay?
Oh yeah, sure. I can pull this up here. Hang on. Let me make sure it's doable. Multi-screen.
No, man. What are you doing? We don't do that here.
Yeah, go ahead, buddy.
It's a podcast, man. Huh.
Yeah.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, we got a video here. Okay. Nice.
Is that your Clonex, or is that just like a?
So cultivate. What is cultivate? I don't remember you say anything about cultivate.
Okay, so that's just a glimpse or a glimmer of how community projects work. So Cultivate is a Clonex holder, and that's his brand, and that's a video he's made with his hoodie. And you got to understand, that's him in the real world, augmented into the video.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so that's the hoodie that you just saw. The digital hoodie actually has those wings on it.
Yeah.
The physical one doesn't, obviously, but yeah, that's the whole point. And he was wearing the shoes. My closing comments. This is something I say once in a while. Bull markets make you money. Bear markets make you rich. So you got to choose your conviction projects. You got to believe in something. And to do that, DYOR. Like spend your days and nights studying what is going on. Do not fall for hype. Do not fall for how many members are on Twitter or how many people in their Discord and what the roadmap PDF looks like. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. What matters is, do they know what they're doing, and do they have a plan to actually see it through? So just do that research and choose 3 projects, maybe. That's all you need, guys. Remember, you just need 1 moonshot, and that will take care of everything. So choose that one. For me, that's Artifact. For Kenny, that's Pixel Vault. For Nate, that's something else. But choose one, have the conviction, follow them, and make sure it works.
Yeah,
that would be Nate's private fund. If you guys want to invest in me, I will make sure that.
Yeah.
That's Alpha Mutants, you know.
Yeah.
Heavily invested. So I mean, great closing comments, guys. So yeah, I would echo what Darkstar just said. You know, it's about conviction. You don't have to have because NFTs shouldn't be the majority of your portfolio anyway. You know, because they are high risk assets. But you know, 2, 3 projects that you have major conviction in. You don't have to have 50,000 projects in your wallet, right? To get in there. And I think one of the big things you take away from this is, you know, bet on projects that have, number 1, good teams that know what they're doing, that have experience, and then number 2, that have a vision that is long term. That isn't something that's going to be one and done in the next 18 months. That literally has a long term vision that goes out years and years and years, and they have a plan to onboard more and more people. So with that being said, we did go 15, 20 minutes over, guys. I apologize for that. We try to stay about an hour and 10 minutes. But so if you guys have any additional questions, all the links are down below in the comments. And you know, come into the Discord, check us out. We will be minting Alpha Mutants on August the 18th. So definitely jump in there, and if you're not whitelisted, jump in and into the community. We have plenty of you know, chances for whitelist over the next couple of weeks that we'll be getting people into. Hopefully, we'll see you there in the community. Once again, thank you, Link, for being on. Thank you, Nate. Thank you, Darkstar. Appreciate all you guys coming on. We will be back on next week, and I will see you next time.